Now let us see increasing and decreasing friction. Is it possible to increase friction, decrease friction? We have seen advantages, disadvantages. That means in some cases we need more friction, in some cases we need less friction. Let us see how to increase the friction first. So in the part of increasing, where we need more friction, at which cases we need more friction? The first thing we see here is brakes. So see that for a bicycle or a motorbike or a car, the brakes must be functioning properly. Otherwise, cannot be saved from accidents. Suddenly, something may come on the way. So we have to stop our vehicle. At that point, we apply the brakes. If the brakes fail, it leads to accident. So brakes are very important. Good grip is very important. You see here, to stop the vehicle, at 2 points the friction is very important. One point is between tires and road. So at this point, it's very important. And what is the other point? Between wheel, rim and brake pads. Brake pads. But of course, this technology is being changed now. Nowadays, we are finding hydraulic brakes. So which works differently? We are talking about a traditional braking system. Traditional braking system in the sense, every vehicle will have a rim, and to that rim there will be a center hub. Inside the hub, there you will find brake pads. So these brake pads, they will just get it tighten the hub so whether the wheel is stopped. So the brake pads, they apply pressure on the wheel to stop rolling. So in this way the brake works. I'll explain you. And you might have seen cycle. This is the cycle. This is the cycle hub. These are the spokes. These are the spokes. And this is the hub. So anyway, we don't have any parts in this hub if it is a cycle. This is the rim. This is called as a rim. And above the rim, you will be having the tire. The tire is not smooth. The tire has got so many irregularities called threading. Threading. What is the threading? The design on the tire is called as threading. It is important. I will tell you why it is important later. Here these are the spokes. This is the rim. Now, for a cycle braking system, here is the brake pads. Brake pads. This is the brake pad. This is the rim. You are pedaling the cycle. The wheel is rolling. The rim is rolling. But when you wanted to stop the vehicle, stop the cycle, I told that at 2 points friction is required. One is between the tire and the road. The other is between wheel rim and the brake pads. These are the brake pads. The brake is applied. These brake pads, they will go up like this. They will come in contact with the rim. Because of the friction, the brake pads are made up of rubberized material. So this rubberized material will have more friction. It will come in contact with the rim, so by that the rotation of the wheel is stopped. This is one point. What is the second point at which friction is needed? So here, between the tire and the road, when you stop it here the friction becomes more. Between the tire and the road, the bicycle is stopped. Say, if your brake pads are worn out, your brake pads are very soft without irregularities, even though you apply brakes, the rim will be moving and you cannot stop the bicycle. Your brake pads are good. You applied brake, but your tire threading, the design on the tire is worn out. If the tire becomes old, the threading becomes old. Then what happens? Then you will apply the brake, the wheel will stop rotating. But the bicycle cannot be stopped. It will skid on the road. See, sometimes if you are riding a bicycle with worn out tires, if you apply the brake suddenly, the cycle will skid. Even the car, any vehicle, if the tires have a completely worn out threading, if they apply the brakes, the wheels of the car can be stopped, but car cannot be stopped because of inertia. It's another kind of force. So the car will be dragged off, skidding. You might have experienced skidding. So that is the reason the friction is important at 2 points. One is to stop the wheel. The second thing is the wheel must have good contact with the road. If it happens, you can safely stop the vehicle. So that is the reason you see that the wheels of a monster truck, you know monster trucks, monster truck. Generally, we don't see these monster trucks in our country. In other countries, there will be a race with the monster trucks. It will be having very big wheels. The wheels will have very big design because they will be making some tricks with the car. So it needs a lot of friction. We see tractors. In our country, we see tractors which are used for farming. The tractor will be having a tire like this, big tires. Back wheels, they will have heavy tires with heavy threading because the tractor will go to the mud into the field. The field is so wet and muddy. So there the tractor has to move. The tractor is used for plowing, seeding, other activities. So there it has to move in the loose soil. It has to move in the mud soil. Then it needs more friction. So the friction of this tractor tire is increased by keeping more threading. So if you want more grip to your tires, you select a tire which has got more threading, more design, more button. Sometimes it is called as buttoning, sometimes it is called threading. See that your tire has got more buttoning, more design. Then you will have good grip. Right? That is the reason you see the tires of sports bike. It will be having more threading even to the sides also because they will bend the bike. Even then they don't skid because of the design. So that is, in this way you can increase the friction. Friction is important in these cases. Sometimes you see in certain games, the players, they apply some powder to the hands for a good grip. Gymnastics. When they perform gymnastics, they will be holding many things in their hand and jumping. So if it slips there, their show gets spoiled, they may get hurt. So they need a very good grip with the poles they are holding. So they apply some coarse powder, gymnastics. Even in the play called kabaddi, when the kabaddi player is going, he has to catch the person. Then they have to hold the person who has come to touch them. So for a better grip, they will apply soil. So because of the soil, the hand becomes rough. So by that, when he holds the person, he can hold him tightly. Otherwise, as they are playing up, their hands may be sweating. Because of the sweat, the person may get slipped off. So that is to get more friction, they apply the soil to their hands. So these are the ways by which we can increase the friction. But let us see the decreasing friction. We cannot decrease the friction totally. You cannot neutralize the friction. If the friction is neutral, you cannot stop anything. Everything will be moving on. Because the friction, what? It makes the object stand still. Right? Otherwise, if friction is completely not there, then if you touch an object, it will be moving on. It doesn't stop. So, but there are certain ways by which you can decrease the friction. Here we have seen there are so many ways by which we can increase the friction. In the same way, we have some techniques, some kind of technology to decrease the friction. Let us see what it is. So, decreasing friction. Decreasing friction. So what are the circumstances where we need to decrease the friction? I already told you that in machinery, when you are running a machinery, a fan or a mixie, any home appliance or any factory machinery, the energy that is used to run the machinery, it is converted to heat and sound, noise because of the friction. So to reduce that, we can use some medium called as lubricants. Lubricants. Lubricant, it can be either oil or it can be grease or it can be graphite or it can be air or water, anything. But in rare cases, water is used and air, water are used in rare cases. Generally, in most of the cases, oil is used. So why this oil is used as a lubricant or grease is used? Let us see. We know that the surfaces, they have got some irregularities. When oil is applied, the oil is applied like this. So what happened? The irregular surfaces are filled by this oil. So the surface has become smooth. When you are opening your door, if you find a creaky sound, you are opening your door, some creaky sound, you're closing it. So your mother tells to put 1 or 2 drops of coconut oil in the hinges of your door. If you put the oil, the sound stops. So if you take your bicycle to the bicycle repair shop and you say that some sound coming from the chain or some other place, he will put some lubricant oil. You see the sewing machine, they will stitch the cloths, the tailors. So if you go to a tailor, then with him you will find a bottle like this. So what does he do with that oil? He will put the oil in the machine to reduce the sound. So in the bike engine, there is a lot of sound comes from the bike engine and heat also produced. In the engine, they will keep the engine oil. For bikes, cars, trucks, buses, lorries, for every vehicle, they keep oil in the engine. They keep oil, they keep coolant oils. These oils will absorb the heat. These oils, they reduce the friction. So the oils will be in different grades. Thin oil. For a small vehicle, thin oil. For heavy vehicles like tractors and JCB machines, they will put very thick oil. It's very thick. Because it depends upon how much heat and sound is produced. So in this way, different grades of engine oils are used in the engines and machinery to reduce the sound as well as heat. So by that we can reduce the friction. Grease. In some of the parts like suspensions and at the nut and bolt joints in the vehicles, at those places, if they keep oil, the oil will be easily dried up quickly. So in such parts, they will apply grease. Grease is a sticky material. It's a ghee-like material. You might have experienced ghee. So it is just like a condensed oil form, the grease. Grease is applied. So by that we can reduce the wearing, we can reduce the sound, we can reduce the heat. Some places there is no possibility to apply oil and grease in some cases. So there they use graphite powder. The graphite is used to make your pencil leads, right? Your pencil lead, the tip of your pencil is graphite. Sometimes when you are putting a plug in the switch box, it will be very tight to pull on, to put. So there they will apply graphite powder, pencil lead. So then you can easily put and you can easily remove. You can reduce the friction. So graphite is used in certain machineries to reduce the friction. Some places they cannot use graphite also. They cannot use oil or grease. There they use a cushion of air to reduce the friction. In some cases, the water is used to reduce the friction. So in this way, whatever the medium which we are using to reduce the friction, it is a lubricant. How the lubricant works? When the lubricant is added, it will fill up the irregularities of the surface and it tries to make the surface more flat compared to the previous one. So because of this flattening, the sliding will be easier and the sliding friction is very less. So this is how we can reduce the friction. Sometimes you see the games like caroms board. When you are playing caroms, there are coins and striker. To make the coins roll easily, quickly, there you will apply some powder. Right? So you may get a doubt, how can a powder decrease the friction? So if you put the powder, you think that it will bring irregularities, then it will increase the friction. No. Basically, the board will be having irregularities. When you put some powder, the irregularities will be locked. Say for example, this is the caroms board, the surface of the caroms board. If you put some powder, the powder will fill the irregularities. So whenever your coin is there, it will easily move, it will easily slide because of the powder. The powder is filling the irregularities. So in this way, we can reduce the friction. Sometimes when you are dragging an object, there will be more friction between the object and the ground. So what do? Then you will use another technique using wheels. See, you will find very hard to carry your luggage. If your luggage is a stroller with wheels, it is easier to pull on. On the platform, you can easily drag. If it is having wheels, if it doesn't have wheels, you have to drag so hard, it will get worn out. Otherwise, you have to carry it on your head top, or you have to hold it. You have to lift the heavy weight. But easily you can drag with the help of wheels. So that is the reason many of the items, chairs, heavy tables, they are having wheels. If the boxes are heavy, the luggage is heavy, the cargo is heavy. So the cargo is placed on a trolley. Trolley will be having the wheels. You will be dragging it. So you have gone to a shopping mall. There you will take a cart. So why the cart? All your groceries, all your veggies, everything you can put it in the cart. You can easily take it wherever you want. If the cart is not having wheels, you have to drag all the way. It produces creaky sound. It produces heat. It will damage the parts and your energy is wasted. So all this can be reduced by using wheels. We can reduce friction. So now here we have seen different types of friction. When an object is steady or stationary on another surface, then there is some friction between the two objects. We called it as static friction. When an object is sliding on the other object, there is some friction between the two objects. We called it as sliding friction. So when one object is sliding on the other object, it is difficult to slide. We need to apply more force. Then if you use some wheels, even then there is some friction between the two objects, but that friction is called as rolling friction. Here is a heavy box like this. A heavy box is here. So this box is on the ground. The friction between the box and the ground is static friction. Now, somebody is pulling this box. Somebody is pulling. It is moving. It is sliding friction. So, for the same box, in this case, some wheels are fixed, right? So in the first instance, when you try to move this box, it's very heavy. You have to apply more force. That means the static friction is more compared to the sliding friction, because you need not apply the force. How much force you have applied to move the stationary object, stationary box? You can apply less force than this to slide for a sliding object, right? It shows that the sliding friction is less than the static friction. You need not apply the same amount of force which you have applied to move a steady object. When an object is getting sliding, then if you try to move further, then you can apply less force compared to static in this case. So the static friction is more compared to sliding friction, right? So here we are sliding, just we are pulling the box. There is friction, you will get some noise between the ground and the box get damaged if you drag like that. So here in this case we arranged some wheels. It is much easier in this way to carry the box. It is much easier with wheels instead of just pulling. Here is also some friction between the wheels and the ground, but this friction is less than the sliding friction. This is called rolling friction, right? You know that in olden days, when there was no machinery, when there were no vehicles for construction or transport, then they used to carry very heavy items for construction. Say for example, these kind of huge granite blocks, because olden temples and forts were constructed by using granite rocks, huge boulders. So very huge boulder, it has to be carried to the place where the construction goes on. How? No heavy trucks, no heavy cranes, no heavy lifts to take this. So the kings, they used to carry these rocks by appointing these huge animals. You might have noticed these big elephants. So the elephants, they'll be pulling these heavy rocks. Here there is a special arrangement. The rock is placed on a plank. Below the plank, they used to keep the wooden logs. So the wooden logs, they roll. If the elephant has to carry or pull this granite rock alone without these rollers, it will be very hard. But that time they used the technology. So they made that sliding friction to rolling friction, which is less, which is a bit easier to carry. You can do the same. Just if you keep a heavy book, a heavy dictionary or an encyclopedia on the table and try to move it, it is very hard. Just if you keep some 4 to 5 pencils, round pencils, and keep the book on the pencils and just you with your finger you can move it. Earlier it was very hard to move with hand, now with a finger you can move it. So you kept the rollers. So these rollers, they convert that sliding friction to rolling friction. So rolling friction is simple. That is the reason for the heavy objects to move, the wheels are fixed. This is called as rolling friction. So we can change the friction, one type of friction to another type with some arrangements. So by that, we can go for the option which is having less friction. You can either drag the box like this, you can arrange some wheels. But which is beneficial? This is the beneficial case. Because of the wheels, you can easily drag it. The box is not getting spoiled. So here we are applying the wheels. So here the friction that is found between the wheels and the road is called as rolling friction. So now let us look at the fluid friction. So far we have discussed about solid objects, the surfaces of solid objects, they come in contact and there they get interlocking, so by that the friction is developed. So now we are going to talk about fluid friction. What is a fluid? What are fluids? Fluid is nothing but liquids. Liquids are called fluids and gases are also called as fluids. So both the liquids and gases are called as fluids. So fluid is a term used to define liquids and gases. It doesn't mean that the mixture of liquids and gases. Liquids as well as gases, they are generally called as fluids. You can call the liquids in general as a fluid, you can call the gases as a fluid. So it's a common name for both these liquids and gases. When some objects are moving in this liquid or gas, they will have some frictional force. They will experience some friction. So the friction that is experienced by an object, either in the liquid or in a gas, is called as drag. A submarine is moving in the water. A fish is swimming in the water. The fish will have some friction with the water. A diver is diving in the water. He will have some friction with the water. A ship is moving in the water. The ship will have some friction with the water. In the air, an aeroplane is going, a bird is flying, a glider is going. So they have some friction with the air. Right? So the meteors, heavy rocks from the external part of the that other side of the universe, that is from the space, they fall onto the earth. This is the earth. Sometimes certain meteors, they come towards the earth. These meteors, they may hit the earth. But what happens? The earth is surrounded by atmosphere, air. When these meteors or rocky material enters the atmosphere, due to the friction of the air, they are burnt into ashes. So by that they are not hitting the earth. So see how useful the friction. The friction is protecting life on the earth. So these rocks and other particles, those whoever comes onto the earth, they are burnt because of the friction. So here, come back here. I told in case of liquids, in case of water, ships, submarines, fishes, these are all having friction with the water. In gas, aeroplanes, gliders, birds, they all have friction. So friction, it will stop. The energy is wasted because of the friction. So how can we reduce friction in these cases, in case of fluid friction? Between two solid objects, by applying some lubricant, we can reduce friction. But in this case, here we have liquids and gases. So what we can apply here to reduce the friction? The friction in fluids is based on two things. One is speed. Second thing is shape. Shape of the object. So the objects are designed in a special shape, so by that the friction is reduced. Right? Say here, if the object is having a flat front like this, it is moving in the air, it will have more surface coming in contact with the air, so there is more friction. But if it is having a sharp point, it will have less friction. That is the reason you see aeroplanes, they have this kind of snout. So the air passes like this. The pointed head, it will cut the air. The friction is less. This kind of shaping is called as streamlined. Streamlined. What is the streamlining? Pointed heads. You see the shape of a boat or a ship. Ship will be like this. So it will be having a pointed front so that it can cut the water easily. Boat, it will have a shape like this. See the pointed, it will cut the water easily. If you see a bird, bird will be having a beak like this and head like this. It will cut the air. It has got a streamlined shape. So the special shape helps these objects which move in air and water to reduce the friction. Naturally, fishes have a streamlined body. Naturally, birds have a streamlined body. So whatever the vehicles we are developing, like a ship or a submarine or a steamer or a boat, we are making their shapes to streamline. So the streamlined ones easily can cut the water. The aeroplanes, helicopter, glider, all these are made in streamlined shapes. So by that they can easily cut the air. So the special shape helps the objects to reduce the fluid friction, the friction in air and in water. So this is how we can reduce the friction, and we have seen how we are benefited because of the friction and what happens if there is no frictional force, and at the same time how the frictional force is disadvantageous, causes problems, and what are the methods and techniques by which we can reduce the frictional force, friction, by using lubricants and by using different techniques. So by understanding, by studying this lesson friction, we can get rid of the unnecessary waste of energy, unnecessary waste of the energy in the form of heat or sound, and we can save energy. So there are so many technologies which you will learn in your higher classes, the applications of friction, right? So here we understood the benefits as well as the disadvantages. So what do you say now? Is friction a friend or an evil? Is friction necessary, a necessity or an evil? You say both. We have to say both, right? Friction is necessary. At the same time, there are some bad effects or disadvantages. But with the help of technology, we can overcome the disadvantages, or at least we can reduce the impact or effect of the disadvantages caused by the friction. If you like this video, please give a thumbs up. Please subscribe to our channel to get more videos on CBSE syllabus.